Hello, it is Tuesday, September 1st, question and answer session. And we have some questions, a handful, and I will take more on air as we go, especially since I have the nifty dead air machine now. And somebody asked about Maxion technology. Somebody asked about EQR. I kind of mentioned that yesterday. So we'll go through some of these. So these stocks of the week are up. So if you want to take a look at that, it's a little bit, it's there. So that's on the unlisted section. And I posted it at margin of safety in the chat. I have not yet added it to the tracking articles. I will toss it up in the rare chat over at fundamental trends as we speak. Drop that in there. There we go. Somebody asked about a stimulus deal. Talk about that. Let's talk politics because everybody loves that. So last year I got tipped off. I was watching this. Stanley Druckenmiller did his annual interview with the Economic Club of New York. And he talked about polling that he does from county to county. And he really talked about how it would be almost impossible for Trump to win. And he said this last summer, just a few months after I started talking about it. So once I started to see the congressional districts go Democrat and the mayoral elections go Democrat and governors and state assemblies started to turn back Democrat, I was like, okay, this is a pretty sustainable thing. Because usually, with the exception of the House of Representatives, pivots are during presidential elections. So we haven't seen a whole bunch of these sustained sea changes. The last sea change was in the early 2000s. And then again in 2010, you saw the Republicans do just a fantastic job of organizing from state to state. And then for the House of Representatives in 2010, which they held for a pretty long time. So what I would suggest to folks is that these waves in politics, they last for periods of time, and they really don't change on a dime and then go back and forth. You see these waves, and these waves last for years and years. So I was talking to a Republican strategist, a big-time guy, and he said, look, the Republicans have done a great job of capturing state houses and state assemblies and state legislatures. And that was their goal, to try to control things at the state level. And then if they could, they wanted to get a president in there that affirmed states' rights, because then they could at least go to the resource-rich states, which tend to lean Republican, and keep extracting wealth from the resources of America without a whole lot of environmental regulation or tax policy. Really nothing that would stand in their way. They look at it as in a very mercantilistic approach. You should really study mercantilism because it is a problem that American capitalism has been running into for the better part of 40 years now, ever since Reagan and really since Bush, and now just, doubled down under Trump. And I think that is what is stirring the underlying shift away from the Republican Party, because you have a majority of people who are financially desperate at this point. We have over half the population can't pay a car or medical bill. So that's a major problem. And when they don't see the current system benefiting them, they'll move to change the system. And then you have all the rhetoric from the Trump side that, a lot of people find offensive. So Druckenmiller made the point that Trump essentially hit the inside straight, right? He won 7 out of 7 swing states. And that was despite the economy not going real fast, but at the time it hit, 3%. So you would have thought that the economy was in the Democrats' favor back in 2016. It didn't quite work. So he sent people out to go county by county, and he's done it before. And he made the point of saying that, there really is very little chance for Trump. Let's see here. There we go. If you want to listen to it.
Avoid these top dinners.
Sure.
When I go to them, if I ask if presidents can be reelected, they don't say yes. They sneer at me and go, "Of course." So I assume the market, whatever that is, thinks he's going to get reelected. I personally think it's going to depend on the Democratic candidate, but he drew us inside straight. He won 7 out of 7 states by less than 0.5%. And if you go county by county in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, he is in deep, deep, deep trouble. And that was with the economy growing at 3%. So I personally don't believe, unless they put up one of the 2, 3 crazies, I can't remember how many there are. I'm assuming he's going to get beat. I think the market assumes differently. I think if he does lose, particularly if I'm wrong and a crazy beats him, I mean, it's worth a lot of PE points, a lot.
So you think Trump off the leash in 2021 or Comrade Sanders is worse for the market?
I'm going to write in for you.
That'd be terrible.
So basically, he says that Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump are bad for the stock market and the economy in general. I think that Sanders would have been okay, because I just don't think he would have gotten as much done as people think he would have gotten done, because even the Democrats wouldn't pass some of those things. The center-left platform that Biden has is probably what most people like. Trump, on the other hand, I think is bad for economic growth. I think the trade wars have been particularly damaging. We can see that in all the statistics. And I don't see that getting better, particularly since he sticks it to our allies too, which is just not a good long-term recipe. We can track trade numbers going back decades and decades, and that really is one of the top indicators of economic growth. So my supposition is that if Trump wins, he doesn't change the way he does things. He keeps doing things the way he does things. And I think he's A-okay at that point, with the stock market getting beat up and real estate prices getting beat up. Why? He'll still blame it on somebody else. He'll blame it on the Chinese, whoever, but then his family will go out and buy all kinds of stocks and real estate in particular. So I think that if Trump wins, we are in for the Armageddon scenario. And it'll be stagflationary, with just a lot of people hurting. Prices from the bottom up are going to rise. Asset prices simultaneously get hit in the other direction because there's no growth and no money out there. You just see a huge unwind of this parabolic trade that's been going on, right? Just take a look at what's gone on. You could see the winning part of the economy get unwound. And at the same time, if you've been paying attention, all sorts of job announcements coming right now, lots and lots of layoffs of big freaking companies. As I warned about back in May, I said that you're going to see, once PPP expires, huge job losses. It's happening. All you have to do is watch Bloomberg News in the morning, and they put up a graphic today of like 30 big companies that are all laying off people. So we need a fiscal policy to support growth, and I think that most people understand that. I think most people also understand that our trade policy has not been good. And I'm not saying that you don't stand up to China. What I'm saying is that there's better ways to do it. You line up your allies, because you don't piss them off with ticky-tack stuff, and then you confront China as a group, and then China has to make some concessions. So this rally here, right? We had the rebound back to even, and then I mean, just look at this. That is not supported by revenues or earnings in most cases, but is really the product of loose monetary policy and tax policy. So once corporations have to pay taxes again, well, if corporations have to pay taxes again, but really, if the Federal Reserve, which started pumping money right here, actually right about here, Federal Reserve, right, the repo bailout, and then now all the other bailouts, is the Fed going to print money forever? Yeah, they can't. They can't. They would destroy the dollar. That was something I was talking about here. This is the dollar chart. So how does this all tie to the elections? There's a lot of people who understand this stuff, and they control huge amounts of money. You've got a Republican group, two Republican groups, going into the state of Florida, spending millions and millions to get that 0.5% to swing back the other way. And right now they're way ahead of a 0.5%. I mean, Trump is down by 6, 7, 8 points in Florida. So, you know, you take a look and you say, okay, if the dollar breaks down, right, Trump policy, the Fed fought him, and now the dollar's getting crushed again. If Trump wins, we probably see this massive support zone for the dollar get beat up, and the dollar does what it did under Bush, and we get a financial crisis. I think there's an awful lot of people who are sophisticated enough to understand that you don't want a repeat of the dollar getting destroyed like this, right? You just, the dollar getting destroyed like that is a bad, bad thing. So keep it in mind, and don't discount that there's a lot of people who understand it, guys like him. He's saying that Trump would destroy the economy if he got a second term. Yeah, he didn't like Sanders either, but point being, Sanders isn't the guy running. So can Trump win? Sure, Trump can win. If mail-in votes don't get through, if for some reason polling stations are closed or blocked, or there's a lot of intimidation, you know, I fully expect people like that kid in Kenosha with the AR-15. I fully expect armed militia types at a lot of polling stations, right? And all they have to do is fire their weapons a few times and people don't show up because it hit the news. I think that's what's going to happen. So we'll see. We'll see. Well, that's not true. Somebody said a lot of people are not in their home states. So you want some statistics? You can take a look at U.S. Census Bureau, I think, put it out 2 or 3 days ago. The red states in the South have seen migration from the blue states, California, New York, New Jersey, Illinois in particular. People moving to Florida and Texas and Arizona. So there's an influx of Democratic voters moving to these other states. I think that'll play a role. There's 23 million people who have become citizens since 2000. They're polling like 4 to 1 in favor of Biden. So the only real way that Biden loses is if the vote doesn't get out, because the difference in Democratic voters, Democratic-leaning voters, or Republican-leaning voters, it's a huge difference. It's not 1 or 2 or 3 million. It's not 50-50. It's like 57, 58, 42, 43. That's the split right now. So even if the Republicans can find enough, you know, even with the defectors among the evangelicals and the never Trumpers that have come back with force, I mean, you're looking at somewhere between 5%, because Trump got 63 million votes. You're looking at 3 million votes that he doesn't get among that group, to as many as 8, 9, 10 million, right? So for him to keep 63 million votes, which is what he got last time, he has to replace the 3 to 10 million people who voted for him last time that are saying they're not going to vote for him this time. Those people don't exist. There aren't 3 to 10 million new Trump voters out there. Just not. So just if Biden gets what Hillary got, which was 66 million, he wins. But here's the other thing. The Democrats probably are going to have high turnout. Again, presuming there's no interference. I've bet on this. I've looked at the numbers. I don't make bets unless the numbers are in my favor. I'm fairly certain that Biden's going to win by at least 10 million votes. And he's going to sweep all the swing states. He's probably going to flip Arizona, and he might flip Texas. I don't think he gets Texas, but I'm almost positive he gets Arizona and Florida and Pennsylvania. It doesn't matter that it's not about the popular vote. It is about the popular vote. He won 7 states by less than 0.5%. So with the migration, with the higher turnout among Democrats, with all sorts of people defecting from Trump, I mean, it's 80,000 votes. Trump loses 80,000 votes, and he wouldn't have won in 2016. He's going to lose millions of votes this time, and the Democrats are going to turn out heavy. The path for Trump to win is so incredibly narrow that I think it's one of the surest bets in electoral history that Biden wins, right? There would have to be electoral interference for him not to win. In which case it goes to the courts, and you just see a clusterfuck of things going on in the fourth quarter, which is why one of the reasons I think the fourth quarter is pretty bad, because I actually do think that there's legal challenges no matter who wins, right? No matter who wins, I think there's legal challenges. I don't think Trump goes down without a fight. And I think that if there's electoral interference, which there's sure to be, I mean, the most obvious electoral interference in the history of the United States was the suppression of the black vote back in, the 50s. You are seeing something that is so close to that with the throwing out of mailboxes and the destruction of mail sorting machines. I mean, anybody who's a Republican who thinks, that you're patriotic, if you're not offended by what happened with the post office, if you're not outright angry about it, right? If you're not embarrassed to be Republican with that happening, then I don't know what would ever make you go, what the hell are they doing? I just don't know. And remember, I lean libertarian, and I've worked for McCain. I'm very sympathetic to a lot of the viewpoints of people who consider themselves conservative or Republican, but it's just un-American what Trump did with the post office. It's un-American. Frankly, it's treasonous. And, I presume that if Trump loses, he resigns right before the end and Pence pardons him. That's my guess. Don Jr. has been talking about it. So, who knows? I just think this gets really bad around election time. And, so moving on to other political things that are going to impact the market, because these things matter. And people say, oh, don't talk politics. Well, fuck off. This stuff all matters. So, some of the polls out there are just so off the charts that people are doubting all the polls. But the reality is that, if you pay attention to the right stuff, these rich guys polling county by county, right? He tipped me off. So I called people I knew in Stamford, Connecticut, and a guy out in San Francisco. And they told me, yeah, Trump is way behind. He's been way behind since last year. So, we'll see. I just think it's going to be a blowout. Is Biden going to narrowly win? I guess that's, in my opinion, the worst case scenario. Or is he going to win in a landslide? Which I think if Biden wins in a landslide, that's much healthier for the country. Much healthier, because it calms, right? There's nothing to repudiate at that point. If Biden wins by 10 million votes, they can't say that they were ripped off or that things were rigged. But if he wins by 1 million votes, right, then Trump can challenge everything in court. Say, all these mail-in votes shouldn't count. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. As far as the negotiations for a fiscal stimulus, so as far as I know, and talking to a pretty connected Democratic operative here in Milwaukee, it is unlikely that you see an agreement on a stimulus package too far ahead of the budget deal at the end of the month. My guess is they end up getting folded together. So I don't expect a deal until after the 14th, and I think it'll be much closer to the 30th. But I think there will be a deal. I don't think they shut the government down. I just think both sides are afraid of that. But if the government does get shut down on October 1st, 2nd, 3rd, wherever, whichever day they run out of money, that could be cataclysmic for the stock market. But in general, I just think that there's not a lot of things other than the Fed that line up for after Labor Day being good for the markets. We've already entered a choppy period, right? So if we just look at year to date, right? S&P 500 since June 8th is up, about 6%, right? But if you take a look since, this, NASDAQ's up 20%. Come on. When does up 20% make sense, right? Okay, and then let's take a look at this. Let's get rid of some of these comparisons here. Let's just look at QQQ. So in 2 years, QQQ has doubled. How does that make sense, right? From here to here, QQQ is basically doubled. Come on, seriously, come on. That means that the growth rate of those companies should all be over 30%. That's not what's happening. Growth rates aren't 30%. So, I think that you're going to see this come back down. I think the top of this box is most likely, right? So if I give you the other, where's my shapes? There you go. Oh, good Lord, there it is. I think that this, I don't think NASDAQ, I don't think the QQQ sets a new low. I think the S&P 500 might. I think this is right where it gets. So that's my thinking now. I think I have to be a pretty big buyer of QQQ right in here, right? So just a hair under 200. Now, if Biden wins, if Trump wins, I'm looking for this. I am looking for the Armageddon scenario within 2 years. I think you see this just fall off a cliff. So really, to me, there are different scenarios if Biden wins or if Trump wins. I know that there's things that Trump says that a lot of people like, but the reality is that, one, he's lying all the time, but two, the tactical approach to confronting China, the tactical approach to growing the economy, they're just wrong. It's basically what Bush did, but on steroids. How did that turn out? So, if we just get a regular volatility event, I think that you could even see, this is a 618 level right here too. So I guess go down. Would we buy up here? Look, if this market just can't come down because there's so many new buyers, that's the millennials finally kicking it into gear. We have to respect that. But I will point out once again that the Robinhood Reddit investor is extremely highly leveraged, and they're not that big of a group. So retail trading, right, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 5 years ago, retail trading was about 10% of the stock market. They're just guys, the small guys at the margins. Everything else is owned by institutions and big funds, right? Big traders, 30 million and plus generally. So the retail investor is now about a quarter of the stock market. So in just the last 5 years, the retail investor has gone from 10% of the stock market up to 25% of the stock market. How did that happen? Well, remember I've pointed out over and over again that the pensions are net sellers. I've shown the Yardeni charts. So the pensions are net sellers. They have to be. Why? Because they're paying benefits out, but they have very little money coming back in, right? Because the younger people don't have pensions. So the pensions are net sellers permanently. We haven't had foreign direct investment in 3 years. And that would, there's been a bit of flight to the dollar, but all these folks who piled into the dollar at the start of COVID, right? All the people who piled into the dollar here, let's just look at year to date, 1 year. Oh, that's just looking, isn't it? All right. So right here, we got that spike in the dollar. That was the fear trade, right? Then the dollar came back down, but it broke through, right, the moving average pretty hard. And now it's getting down to the support zone. It got there once, and the Fed backed off on printing money, right? This is when the Fed was flattening the balance sheet and trying to buy some of it back. Stock market got all angry, and as the dollar rose, stock market got angry through 2018. Then we had the rally, then the crash. This is kind of a valuation rise. One of the things that Druckenmiller says in here is he talks about PE, and that's something that we need to keep in mind. It's not really revenues and earnings driving things; it's multiple expansion. Think of Tesla, right? So in any case, if the dollar breaks through this range, and it's okay if it's anywhere in here, but once it breaks through this range, bad things start to happen to the economy. We saw it in 2018. So if Trump wins, the dollar keeps going down, and bad things that happen. The destruction of the dollar is probably the worst thing in the economy for 98% of the population. And nobody understands it. They just know when their food costs more, right? So we have to keep these things in mind. As far as somebody's asking about COVID, it is clear, I just talked about it in the last webinar, it is clear that we don't have control of COVID. Why we don't have control of COVID, it is the stubborn politics or attitude or machismo or something that is keeping people from social distancing and wearing masks. It's not all people. I'd say 2 out of 3 people are following the rules. Well, you've got a third of the population. I know a guy. He won't wear a mask. Won't wear a mask. Doesn't matter where he is. Won't wear a mask. Well, at this point, it's been proven that the masks work over and over and over again. So whatever. We'll see. I think that the first wave of COVID never ended, and I think that a new wave of COVID is developing because it's clear that it's already happening at the schools. I don't know what happens to elementary and high school teachers when they start catching it, and we know that they will. I have a hard time thinking that COVID really gets better before the election, and maybe not even this year, right? So I think that we're in for a pretty rough winter. I think the job situation looks desperate, as now you're having industries outside of the service sector, right? Outside of your restaurants and hotels and your hospitality, which is almost 20% of the jobs. They're already highly unemployed. But when you have just these huge layoffs, there's a Bloomberg graphic today. I don't know if I can find it real fast. Yeah, they had a graphic up there today that it was like 30 companies, big companies, Ford, GM. You're talking major employers that are doing layoffs. So I'm just not confident in anything about things. I think if Biden wins, you see a local dollar. That was actually one of my ideas. I published an idea on I actually did publish an idea on this today. I don't know how to find it. I think the dollar marks a bottom if Biden wins. And you can see on this chart that under Bush, dollar got clobbered. It was volatile but stabilized under President Obama and then rose. So it took some time to stabilize it, right? And real estate didn't even bottom until 2011, 12, right in here. And then Trump started to beat it up again. Fed fought him on it. He yelled at the Fed, and now the dollar is getting beat up again because of the crisis. But really just massive monetary policy. Again, this green line, bad things happen below that green line. Financial crisis, and this chart doesn't go any further back, but other charts would show the how it coincides. Big dollar sell-offs coincide with financial crises. Somebody asked about Maxion Solar, so let's just get into some of the stocks. I think you hold on to your Maxion, right? One of the backdoor ways to play solar power is copper and zinc and nickel and cobalt. But everybody knows about cobalt, right? And lithium. The new batteries are using copper, right? We have pretty much copper, even though we haven't had any new discoveries. So in general, I'm in town here. I got major Caterpillar plants here, and Komatsu, which bought Joy Global. So I think that the mining industry is going to do pretty well. I think Caterpillar, if it ever pulls back, is right, a company to take a look at. I think GDX on a pullback, you buy it again. I've looked at other ETFs. It's just tough. I mean, you really have to cherry pick. But, I take a look at Caterpillar and I go, well, the concept is good, but the damn thing hasn't come down in years, right? It just stays in this range. So I guess this would have been a spot to buy Caterpillar, we're down here. So we'll see what happens. If we can get Caterpillar, and this doesn't look like a good trend, but I think that this is setting up for a reversal. If we can get Caterpillar, this is a hard one to chart. There you go, like that. I think that's where we're looking. I mean, you get to right around $100 a share. I think you pretty much have to buy Caterpillar because their earnings should do very, very well, right? We're going to have to mine a lot of metals. So if we can get it down around 100, I think we have to buy it. I just think, this is pretty structural here. So I would say that this was probably a miss, given that I've talked about copper for a year now in the solar industry. So if we get Caterpillar near 100, I think that's probably a pretty great buy. I think Freeport-McMoRan is very interesting. I got into this one a long time ago. I bought Freeport-McMoRan right here. Got a huge rally. Not so sure we see that kind of a rally in Freeport-McMoRan. But again, I think it's a backdoor way to play alternative energy. So if it would pull back down to, right around 10-ish, I think that this area here, I think that area there is pretty good spot, right? We've got a confluence of lines and then a 618. So that box on Freeport-McMoRan, that's pretty exciting. 12 to 10. I take a look at how high the Swiss franc has been. And what did I say to buy it about a month ago? About here? I think I bought it at like 98. It's 100. So it's not a big gain. I think, again, I don't look at cryptocurrency or currencies as real big investments for you. Look at them as vehicles to trade and to keep cash while the dollar is weak. If Trump wins, I think you see them stop suppressing the franc, because they've been suppressing the franc. They do it on purpose. And they did it because this happened. Here's the thing. In the future, if Trump wins and we start seeing stagflation, the Europeans aren't going to play nice with us anymore. They've been waiting us out. They've been waiting Trump out. And I'm telling you, the European Union started to get its act together. I don't think they can keep it together, but for a while they could jam it to us. And one of the things that they could do is they could let all their currencies get strong, and then they could put tariffs on us, and then they could tell us, oh, well, you can't sell us your shit. If you think that the Europeans can't push back on us as hard as we've been pushing on them, you are categorically wrong. They probably couldn't do it forever, but they could do it for a while. And they all make decisions based on what's good for them. A lot of the alliances have been very damaged by Trump. The United States is more alone now than we've been in a very long time, since before World War II. So, I understand that people are like, hey, I like that Trump says this, and I like that Trump says that, and, I'm not real pro-affirmative action, and I'm not this, and I prefer that, and I'm pro-life, and whatever. I think if you just go point by point about the things that you support, and then you ask if Trump really supports them, you find out they just throw the bone here and there. And I think most people who don't like him see that. I think that big group of Republicans that are leaving see that. And I don't think, if you just think about the presidential election, and this is something I've told all my friends and family, I vote on two things. I vote on, do I think somebody will get us into a war? And I vote on if I think they're going to cause a really bad recession or depression. If the two candidates tie on those things, then I move on to other things. But I vote on those two things. And in my life, there has never been a difference so narrow that I had to move on to number 3. I don't even know what number 3 is for me. I don't know what my third issue is. So as a libertarian-minded guy, I think about what can impede my freedom. And it's not always government. Sometimes it's a financial and economic system that's oppressive. So I encourage anybody out there that hasn't seen The Holy Grail by Monty Python, you really should watch it before the election. To me, government oppression in this country actually has ticked up recently, but the economic oppression is apparent, and it's been getting worse and worse and worse. And granted, does not all fall on Trump. There are clearly things that I think Obama could have done that he didn't, and Bush was not very good. Last good president, I think, that didn't make any huge mistakes was probably Clinton. And then he went and did stupid things in the Oval Office. So, I don't even know if there's been a great president in my lifetime. I think Clinton and Obama were probably the best. And, Clinton because the economy did well and he got close to balancing the budget. And Obama because he really was scandal-free. Anybody who says he has scandals just making shit up. I mean, he's about as clean as you get for politicians. And I qualified as for a politician, but he's about as clean as you get. And I know that under Reagan, the second Bush, and Trump, that we've had financial crises under all three. I mean, at some point, the repetition in history's got to wake you up. And the Europeans know it. And if Trump wins, this is going to scream up here. He'll make 20 or 30 points. This is just a bond and cash substitute, right? So in the 80-20 portfolio, right, we know that a portfolio of about 80% equity and 20% bonds historically has done just as well as being 100% in stocks, right? Historically, we know that's true. But I'm not comfortable owning bonds because the corporate bonds have as much risk as stocks at this point. And you get no yield on government bonds. So you really have to turn to the currencies and alternatives. And we've been mainly in gold, about 15%. Then this is another 5% for me. So between gold and the Swiss franc, and I also talked about the Aussie, and it's taken off too. So I mean, where these boxes start is where I talked about it. So one of the things that I'm moving towards with all the subscription services is I know people just like to be told what to do. And I'm shy about that. So I'm going to have to couch how I say things. But, if suddenly I'm talking about stuff like this, you should pay attention. And honestly, if I told you this, if I decide to just become a day trader, I'm going to trade currencies because I haven't got really many currency trades wrong in my whole career. I actually can't think of one where I was wrong. I've pushed, I've tied a few times, but I've gotten all the currency trades right. So if Trump wins, where'd it go? If Trump wins, the Aussie keeps going up, and FXX keeps going up, right? So, and I could get way up here for sure. If Biden wins, I think it just stabilizes, and then you get rid of it. You probably invest in the dollar, right? If Biden wins, the dollar is going to get stronger, and that's good, right? You don't need to undercut people on prices to sell your stuff abroad, to sell higher quality stuff. It works that way. And especially with the robots. I mean, the supply chain's moving. It's just so much more important. So in an era that we're entering, where supply chains are moving not because of tax policy, not because of currency prices, not because of labor prices, but in an era where supply chains are moving because a robot here is the same price as a robot there, so we might as well be closer to the resources and the customers. You're gonna want your currency to be stronger for the 25% of stuff that will get abroad and how it impacts the rest of the economy. And as the dollar gets stronger, we get more foreign direct investment, which means that our asset prices go up without having to juice them monetarily through the Federal Reserve, creating more debt. So I know that's a lot of economic theory, and I'm just glossing over. But yeah, keep your Maxi on stock. I think you can sell. I have them up here. I think you can sell puts on Sun Power if it ever freaking comes down again, right? Because stocks only go up now. But right around 9 or 10, I think you sell puts and probably buy, because this looks like a fairly legitimate breakout. So you're just going to get a regular run-of-the-mill correction here. Again, if Biden wins, if Trump wins, I think you get crushed because he's not going to support any of this. So we'll see. We shall see. I think that you need to make a trade in Sun Power probably right before the election. During any volatility, you're going to have to make your trade. Because I think that longer run, and this is one of the companies out there that's one of the safest. Keep that in mind. Sun Power is one of the safest companies you can invest in out there, and so is Maxion, because Total backs them, right? It's like having the super rich uncle who tells you, yeah, go to any college you want, I'll pay for it. Okay, you're gonna prepay for it? So Sun Power and Maxion are extremely safe. I mean, that's not a particularly volatile stock, and it's breaking out. And so on the pullback, you're going to need to buy it because I think it's probably going way up here for sure. And I don't even know if the chart does anything else. Yeah, no. Once you get that's as far as they go. As far as I have them set to go. I think you see Sun Power over 30 by the middle of the decade, sooner if Biden wins. Gamestop, I'm not even going to chart that out. GameStop sucks. Okay, I'll chart it out. Then we'll finish with Exact Sciences because somebody asked about that. GameStop, right? I liked the thesis initially, and then they had major management problems. And ever since I said sell, they've gone to hell. I mean, when is it that I said sell? GameStop. There you go. So October 2018. Right? I told folks, get the hell out of this thing right there on that little spike up there. Because we had originally done a little buying in there. It rose up for us. Then October 18th, I said, just get rid of it because their management is screwing up, and it fell down here. And the thing that Michael Burry has wrong about GameStop, right? And you can do seasonal trades in it. The problem that they have is that they're not getting enough people to buy online from them. It's not happening. Why isn't it happening? It's because, so somebody's trying to take over the company. It's because they have huge competition from Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo. So GameStop could survive with the right management. Somebody took almost a 10% stake in the company. I don't know who Ryan Cohen is. I don't know if that's Stevie's kid or who it is. But something to take a look at. It spiked the stock today, but it's still a crap company, and the cash flows don't support it. But remember what I said back here in 2018. The thing to remember is in 2021 and 2022, a ton of leases expire, and I think some expire at the end of this year. I'd have to double check. So if they can dramatically reduce their operating expenses, create the experiential stores that I talked about, and drive all sorts of people online, right, into their buyers club, then maybe they can create cash flows that pump it up back up here. But I think it's extremely risky on the execution front, and the competition are the richest companies in the world, right? So, and I don't see Microsoft or Sony or anybody buying these guys. There's no point. And there's all the empty commercial space now, right? So with the right leadership, could GameStop do okay? Maybe. I haven't looked into it for a while. But I think my thesis back here, which is you go to experiential, stores, sell the collectibles too. But you have your gaming tournaments, and you have your come here and try this for free if you're a member of our club, right? If you're a member of our club, you can come, just our cheapest club, our $9 a month one or whatever they have. If you're a member of our cheapest club, you can always come into a store and try something before you buy it. And if you buy it from us, you get your membership fee that month back, right? Buy from us and your membership's free. I mean, there's all kinds of things they can do, but they had like 3 managements in here. One was because of death. But they had 3 managements in here and they all sucked. So I don't know much about what they're doing now. We'll see. Maybe this Ryan Cohen guy and maybe Michael Burry, maybe they can get these guys to do the right things. Maybe it doesn't matter because the competition's too strong. I think you really have to have a good grasp of this business to invest in it and totally understand the risks. Because this is clearly a go to zero potential stock, right? Back to Maxion. I don't know if I'd buy more. MXM. What's the symbol for Maxion? MX. Yeah. There you go. It's going to the moon. All it does is go up. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what a good entry is on this. I don't. I think you got to watch it a little longer. I do think they're in a great position, though. My guess is that they're undervalued. That's my guess. My guess is that they're undervalued, but I just don't know how to trade it quite yet. Is IWM going to turn over? I think it already started, didn't it? Yeah, already started. I mean, I guess it could cheer back up. I mean, this, again, I think everything is going to be bad or horrible going forward for the next 4 months. Next 4 months are going to be bad or they're going to be horrible. I don't know which. I'd be shocked if this market goes up more, much more. I mean, could the Fed just put the pedal to the metal through the election? I guess they could. They haven't indicated that's what they're going to do. But this is, your upside is to about 175 right in here. That's the broad upside. And then this is pretty huge resistance up here. Actually, 170-ish is pretty huge resistance. So, I'm telling you, this has been a fake economy built on debt. Debt has gone through the roof. Everybody complained about that when a Democrat was in office. And that was taking things from bad to good. And now we took things from good to bad with a bunch of debt. And it wasn't just all COVID. I told you at the start of the year there was going to be a volatility event. And this was the worst volatility event than I thought. But then the Fed came in. I mean, this was fair value. I'm telling you, we are way over fair value. Way over. Historically, way over fair value. And I've showed you those charts. mean, if you don't remember 2008, you need to go read Too Big to Fail or The Big Short or something. It's all happening again right now. Similar debts, similar derivatives with trade wars. I mean, there's nothing that bright about the economy except in the tech space. So, all right. I don't know anything about TELUS. Somebody asked about Iron Mountain. I think Iron Mountain sucks. I have talked about Iron Mountain on numerous occasions. I think Philip Morris sucks, and I think insurance companies suck. So somebody asked about that on the Margin of Safety board, and yeah, why would you own an insurance company at this point? I don't know anything about Teradyne either. What's Teradyne? Is the person that asked about Teradyne on the call? No, that sure looks exciting. I don't know what they do. So what does Teradyne do? They're some sort of manufacturer of something, right? Oh, automatic test systems for semiconductors. Oh, yeah, okay, I know who these guys are. I think that the semiconductor space is wildly overvalued. So take a look at stocks. Keep going back. I mean, right? This is when we really figured out that smart everything world was coming, right? Then it went parabolic. Big crash. The dollar got beat up. COVID. But it really was a valuation event. When you take a look at the price to earnings to growth rates of these companies, and we can do that. Let's put in stocks. There's a way to do it, and I don't know how to do it. Sorry. There's a way to see the holdings here. But I mean, just look at that. Should it always be setting new highs? Should it always be setting new highs? I don't know. So I'm going to finish here in just a second. One of the companies I would point out to you, if you're interested in some of these shell companies, these SPACs, these special purpose acquisition vehicles, look at the social capital ones. So this guy was a big time investor in Facebook early. And he's got two different SPACs that he set up. Then one of them is going to buy an international tech company, and the other one's going to buy a domestic tech company. Basically looking for unicorns. And I think that this guy is more likely to hit a home run than Ackman. I think Bill Ackman is has a wide range, right? He'll lose some big hands. In the long run, you're probably good with him if you're invested in everything he had. But he has a wide range of hands. I don't think I would invest in the Ackman special purpose acquisition vehicle. But this one, I think I would take a look at. There's one from Goldman Sachs I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. I don't like the guy running it. I don't like that it's Goldman Sachs. But this guy, IPOB and IPOC, if you want to put a percent of your money in these companies with the idea that he could make an amazing acquisition that ends up being a 10 or 20 or 30 acre, this is probably the shell company to do it with, in my opinion. And it's flying under the radar, but just like with Nikola, which I told you about, I think that this guy is probably, I can't say his last name. You look it up, you'll understand why. I think this is the guy that you take a look at. And that's, again, if this is within your risk tolerance, right? Another company that we talked about yesterday in the stock call is Dynavax. Again, that's a speculative lottery type of pick. So I'm going to put both of these stocks on the spec list. If that's your thing, take a look at them. See if did I completely ignore anybody? If I did, fire up your question again. I got to everything. Okay. Make sure you take a look at the stock and option webinar from Monday night. It was, I think, a pretty good one, and I'll have this up within the next half an hour or so. All right. Is there a role for international CDs? You're talking to the wrong guy. I don't know. I mean, there's a bank out there. ever something maybe. I've bought CDs in the past. The problem is that, you get enticed by these super high yields, and then they devalue something by, 70% or 90%. So you gotta be very careful about international CDs. I've used them a long time ago. I think it's easier to bet on currencies and get your 4, 5, 6 points that way. But certain CDs, like in Mexico, I've got a client who's down in Mexico, and she has, I think it's a Mexican CD. It's a bank product of some sort, and she's getting a huge interest rate. But I don't know what the risk is. So that's the thing that you have to ask about these international CDs is what is the risk? And it changes from country to country. So you just got to figure that out. If you find something that you think is really a good idea, I'll put it on the VSL under the alternative income. But, at some point, even I run out of time, and I'm focusing mainly on stocks. All right, everybody, have a good day. I hope that you're having enjoyable weather. Wisconsin has been in the 70s for a week and relatively dry, which is a sprinkle here and there, so it's been darn near perfect. All right, everybody, take care.